the antique wreath. Trigger. Warning! This episode contains disturbing themes and supernatural elements. Viewer discretion is advised. Tonight's story follows Caroline, a holiday enthusiast, who, like Alex, Jamie, and the others, is about to uncover something dark and sinister. The countdown continues to night 10. I've always loved vintage Christmas decorations. There's something special about holiday items from the past, like they carry a little piece of the people who use them. When I saw that old Christmas wreath at the flea market, I was instantly drawn to it. The seller told me it was unique, one of a kind, with a long history, and I thought it would look beautiful hanging on my door. The wreath was strange, but beautiful. It was made of twisted, dark evergreen branches with a red ribbon tied in a loose bow, now faded to a dull maroon. Small, glimmering ornaments hung from it, tiny red baubles that caught the light just right, as if they were glowing. I knew it would be perfect for my door, adding that touch of old-fashioned charm I'd been looking for. I didn't expect it to feel wrong. The first time I hung it up, I felt a strange chill. It was subtle, like a cold draft had crept into the house, but it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I brushed it off, telling myself it was just the winter air, maybe a breeze sneaking in through the door. But that night, as I was locking up, I could have sworn I saw something flicker in the corner of my eye. When I looked closer, I saw that one of the ornaments had a tiny crack in it. It was faint, barely noticeable, but there was something about it that unsettled me. I reached out to touch it, and the air seemed to grow colder around my hand. I pulled back, heart pounding, and quickly turned off the lights. But as I walked away, I could have sworn I heard a faint cracking sound, like ice breaking in the dead of winter. The next morning, I woke up to an odd sight. When I walked into the living room, I saw a small pile of red dust on the floor, right below the wreath. I frowned, wondering what could have caused it. I leaned in, and that's when I saw it. One of the ornaments had shattered completely, leaving shards scattered on the floor like little splinters of glass. I cleaned up the mess, feeling a strange unease. The wreath seemed untouched, perfect, as though it hadn't changed at all, even though one of the ornaments was clearly gone. I tried to ignore the sinking feeling in my stomach, but a small part of me felt like I'd made a mistake bringing it home. That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I heard it again, a faint cracking sound coming from the front door. My heart raced as I walked down the hallway, the house eerily silent. I stared at the wreath, expecting to see it perfectly still, but something was different. Another ornament had cracked, just enough to let a faint trickle of red dust fall to the floor, like tiny grains of sand slipping through an hourglass. I backed away, not knowing what to make of it. It was just an old wreath, I told myself, probably brittle from age. But as I turned to go back to my room, I heard a sound, low and soft, like a whisper in the air. Caroline! My blood ran cold. I froze, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. But the whisper came again, clearer, like someone was standing right behind me. Caroline! I stumbled back, clutching my chest as I stared at the wreath. My mind raced, telling me it was impossible, that I was just tired, maybe a little spooked by the decorations. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. Something about that wreath was wrong, something I couldn't explain. The next day, I tried to brush it off. I went about my day as usual, keeping busy, but every time I came near the front door, that chill returned. I started avoiding the wreath, barely glancing at it as I passed by, but each time I felt it watching me, like it was aware of me. I finally decided to do some research, hoping to find more information about it. I found nothing at first, just vague mentions of old holiday traditions, but after digging a little deeper, I stumbled upon something unsettling. The wreath, or one just like it, had a history. It had belonged to different families over the years, passed down through generations, but every story had the same ending. Each family that owned it met with accidents, tragedies, disappearances. It was almost like the wreath carried a curse, something dark and twisted. I told myself it was just folklore, ghost stories, nothing real. But that night, the chill returned, worse than before, and I couldn't ignore the feeling that I'd brought something dangerous into my home. That evening, as I sat on the couch trying to distract myself, I heard it again. The faint, cracking sound. My pulse quickened, my hands clenching as I turned toward the door. There, in the dim light, I could see it. Another ornament on the wreath, fractured, with a thin line of red dust seeping out, drifting to the floor like blood in water. The sight made my stomach turn, a sense of dread twisting in my chest. I approached it slowly, watching as the dust fell, my mind racing. The whispers started again, soft and insistent, filling the silence with a name. Caroline. Caroline. I froze, barely able to breathe. It was saying my name, whispering it over and over, like a chant, like it was trying to pull me closer. My hands shook as I reached out, compelled by some strange force, my fingers brushing against the cracked ornament. The room seemed to darken, a heavy shadow creeping over me, and I felt the wreath grow colder, almost like it was alive. I pulled my hand back, but the shadow lingered, curling around me, pressing down on my chest. And then, in a voice that was barely a whisper, it spoke. "Your time is running out." I stumbled back, my heart racing, panic filling me. I ran to my bedroom, locking the door behind me, trying to block out the sound, but it was no use. The whispers continued, soft and relentless, echoing in my mind, filling the room with that chilling, steady rhythm. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the wreath, its twisted branches, the cracked ornaments bleeding red dust. I could feel it watching me, waiting, and I knew that it wouldn't leave me alone. The next morning, I decided I'd had enough. I went to the front door, reaching for the wreath, determined to tear it down and throw it outside. But as I grabbed it, I felt a surge of cold shoot through my hand, numbing my fingers. My grip loosened, and the wreath stayed in place, as if glued to the door. I stumbled back, fear clutching at me. It wouldn't let go. The wreath was attached, like it had claimed its place, like it had bound itself to my home. I spent the day avoiding the front door, trying to ignore the whispers, the faint cracking sounds that echoed through the house. But as night fell, the dread returned, thick and suffocating, and I knew that it wouldn't stop. Not until it got what it wanted. That night, around midnight, I heard it again. The steady, rhythmic cracking coming from just outside my bedroom door. My heart pounded as I crept toward the door, barely breathing, my hand hovering over the handle. I knew I shouldn't open it, that whatever was out there was something dark, something dangerous. But I couldn't stop myself. I turned the handle, slowly, and opened the door. There, hanging in the doorway, was the wreath. I gasped, stumbling back, unable to process what I was seeing. It had moved, come inside, like it had a will of its own. I backed away, feeling the room grow colder, the air pressing down on me as the whispers filled my mind. And then the ornaments began to crack, one by one, red dust spilling from each until the floor was covered in a fine, shimmering powder. The wreath pulsed like a heartbeat, each beat growing louder, stronger, filling the air with a steady rhythm that matched the pounding in my chest. And in a voice that was no longer a whisper, it spoke. Caroline, your time is done. It's in my home. It won't leave. And now, I don't know if I'll ever get rid of it. Thank you for watching Night 10 of the 12 Nights of Terror. I don't know what this thing is, but I don't think it'll let me go. If you're watching, please come back tomorrow. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I don't know how much longer I can keep it out.